Alrighty, guys. Good morning to you all here. I should say good afternoon if you are on the East Coast. It's about lunchtime here, noon Central Time, July 13th, 2025. And we have got a lot going on. If you guys were able to tune into the live stream last night, we got hopefully some people ready to go for what was a pretty decent flash flooding risk last night. We had a flash flooding ongoing this morning. Flash flood emergencies were issued this morning, as well as flash flood warnings that are still ongoing. But once again, another catastrophic situation here as we are going throughout the day today across South Central Texas, where a moderate risk for flash flooding is still in place, as well as a slight and a marginal risk, but those flash flood warnings are out. You can see them on the screen here. We've not seen totals really exceeding 20 inches, which is good. But like I said last night in the video and in stream, any additional rainfall in these areas that saw flooding last week, we're going to experience more flooding. We've already seen rivers cresting to major flood stage already again this morning. We've seen rivers rise from 2 to 3 feet to all the way up to 20 to 30 feet almost. It's just been a wild morning in South Central Texas. Again, the good news is the rain will start becoming to an end over the next couple of hours here. We'll be seeing that push east, so this isn't going to be a 2 or 3 day sequence. This is going to be out of here by later on tonight, but we'll still see rain around the area towards San Antonio, New Braunfels, Austin, Killeen. It seems to be Killeen was where the worst impacts were. We did see some heavy rainfall, about 1 to 3 inches in Kerrville, so that was good that we didn't see some of those higher totals. But over towards the south side of San Angelo and up towards Killeen, where those higher totals at, we have seen some rainfall totals west of Killeen of about a foot over since last night, and then some areas outside of that, there in the San Angelo area, seeing rain up to about 3 to 5 inches. Down here, where those impacts were mostly at last week, saw lesser rainfall totals. So that was always a good thing to see. That's a good thing when those rainfall totals underestimate, but some overestimations happened in portions of South Central Texas last night. So here's a rough estimate here of what we saw, at least within the last 6 to 24 hours here. These models are a little bit iffy in terms of picking up those rainfall totals, but you can see those higher areas between Brady and Killeen seeing about 8 to 12 inches of rain, 5 to 8 inches more outside of those isolated areas there. More likely 5 to 8 inches of rainfall over here south of San Angelo near the Sonora area as well, and then about 1 to 3 inches of rain from Kerrville back up to Fredericksburg. So we're still seeing rain, so those totals will go up throughout the afternoon here, but a better situation for some areas, not some for good. But regardless of that, like I said, any rainfall in these areas, which did happen overnight last night through this morning and still ongoing, did cause some pretty significant flooding. So thoughts and prayers are with people that are impacted. I know search and rescue from last week's event got halted today because of all the rain that's been ongoing, so hopefully they can get back out there and get the rest of that damage cleaned up, and hopefully find some more people that are still missing out there, because we have lots of reports of people missing. So we'll keep you guys updated for that. I'll probably have a live stream here in just a little bit after they get this video posted. Here's some of the rainfall totals from yesterday in Oklahoma as well. We saw about 3 to 5 inches of rainfall in and around Oklahoma City, some 3 to 5 inch totals back down into southeast Oklahoma yesterday. Outside of that, everybody was about 1 to 3 inches of rain. So not too crazy, but Oklahoma City did see some pretty significant flooding yesterday. So we'll keep you guys as well in thoughts and prayers as well. Outside of that, though, we do still have a pretty decent shot at seeing some flash flooding across most of the Ohio Valley today and up into portions of the Northeast. Slight risk and marginal risk for flash flooding. Not big events or not any big totals, but there could be some localized flooding with any storms that do initiate there. I do want to talk about another thing here, and that is going to be the flooding threat that we're going to be seeing for Florida. We are expecting some pretty significant flash flooding through next week, which will be potentially becoming our next tropical system in the Gulf here going into the end of next week. Some models are showing a hurricane, some models aren't showing none, and that is about one model that is actually showing a tropical storm or hurricane developing, and that is the Icon model. You guys will probably see that posted on social media going into the week here, because it's the only aggressive model we have that's showing anything. The GFS and the European really aren't latching onto the idea of this system developing. I will say, looking at this satellite imagery this morning of what could potentially become our next named storm off the coast of Florida here, this wave of tropical energy will be moving through Florida, bringing lots of heavy rain through tomorrow and into Monday, and into Tuesday as well. And then eventually, once this gets in the Gulf, it's going to have about a 3-day window, 2 to 3 day window here to potentially develop into something tropical. And that would be our next named storm on the list potentially would be Dexter. We'll see if NHC upgrades this. We'll see if we start to get model consistency. But right now, the Icon model is the only model that's being aggressive with this. And I wouldn't rule it out, honestly, because the water temperatures are so warm in the Gulf. So if this storm does get defined and it does potentially develop here over the next 2 to 3 days and rapidly intensify into something, it's not off the table. So if you guys are in the Gulf from Florida all the way to Texas, you need to be watching this system very closely next week. It's not time to panic or anything, but we're going to be watching this closely, because the water temperatures are supportive of rapid intensification. If we get a rapid intensifying storm, it's not a good thing, and it's already close to the water or close to land here. So, like I said, looking at imagery this morning here, this is a pretty decent blob of convection. I wouldn't be shocked to see the hurricane hunters go out there at some point in the next 48 to 72 hours here, really 2 to 3 days, to start to watch this thing, get some pressure readings on it, and see the wind speeds inside this blob. But I also wouldn't see, the National Hurricane Center upgrade in the future too, and maybe even go ahead and call this an invest. So we'll see what happens. But a lot of convection moving toward Florida here. So if you are in central and southern Florida, get ready here, because it is going to be a washout over the next couple days, and we'll talk about what those rainfall totals are going to look like here in just a little bit. Outside of that, though, you can see our big complex of storms down here in Texas. Outside of that as well, an upper level low moving through the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. We do actually have an organized tornado threat potentially later on this afternoon across the Ohio Valley and down into the Tennessee Valley, and I'm actually included in that, so go figure. We're under the threat for tornadoes today here in our backyard, so we'll talk about what that looks like here in just a second. We're also watching the tropics out here in the mid-Atlantic, a little blob of convection out here. This isn't going to probably do anything in terms of, initiating into becoming anything, but just a blob of convection kind of sitting out there. The Gulf is pretty quiet as of now. That will change as we go in towards next week. And then down here in the Pacific, we're actually quiet for once, which is a good thing as well, taking a little bit of break from the action down there. We've seen a lot of storms in the Pacific Ocean over the last couple of days. We'll go ahead and break down the Storm Prediction Center's outlook here, and we do have an interesting little risk zone today. We've got multiple risk zones today, I should say. I had some people in stream last night that were asking, when are we going to get rain in southern Arizona? Well, you do have a severe weather threat today in southern Arizona, a marginal risk and a slight risk there. So that is going to be for the Tucson area, or not Tucson area, the Tuscan area here in southern Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona could see some showers and thunderstorms later on this afternoon as well. We have a marginal risk that goes from southern Arizona back up into New Mexico and western Texas. Marginal risk back down here into East Texas, South Central Texas, all the way up through Louisiana and into the Ohio Valley. Could see an organized tornado threat potentially materialize later on this afternoon across Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, and Missouri, and northwestern Tennessee. A marginal risk back up here into portions of the high plains and Midwest from Minnesota and Wisconsin. Another marginal risk down here for damaging winds and hail in Florida and in southern Georgia, and another marginal risk back up here into North Carolina, Virginia, all the way up into New York there with a slight risk for damaging winds. So a lot of risk zones today kind of scattered across the board here. It's like you get a marginal in terms of our risk zones today. Now we do have a 2% tornado risk, and believe it or not, I am included in that. So this is going to be a little bit of an interesting situation to watch today. Western Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, eastern Missouri, northern Tennessee, and northeast Arkansas under the gun for what could be brief outflow boundary tornadoes. We're not talking like any strong, violent tornadoes. These are going to be brief tornadoes if any outflow boundaries can get going off of storms this afternoon. We've got a little bit of low-level shear, very weak shear in the atmosphere that could prompt a couple of tornadoes today. So be mindful of that. If you're in the lower Ohio Valley and the Missouri Boot Hill for today, wind threat across the board here. If you're in a 5% or a 15% chance, which is all these areas highlighted, winds could be up to 70 miles per hour. And then we do have 2 areas of hail for up to 1 to 2 inch diameter hail. So nothing super crazy today. Just a lot of risk zones kind of scattered across the board. We get to tomorrow as well. We do have the next 2 days will probably be our quiet days in terms of severe weather. Small marginal risk back up here into the high plains. General thunderstorm risk outside of that for everybody else. Wind and hail will be the primary threats for tomorrow. And then another marginal risk as we start to watch our next system enter the picture here going into Tuesday, where we have another marginal risk from Minnesota all the way down into Nebraska and South Dakota. We get into the next week, or the middle of next week here. We'll be watching the tropics potentially for some severe weather as well as the heavy rainfall in our next named storm. We're also going to have the chance for a couple of troughs, shortwave troughs, to move through the upper plains and Midwest and the Ohio Valley here and up into the Great Lakes going into Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And those could prompt a couple days of severe weather. So we'll be watching in this area for the later half of next week to potentially see some type of severe weather going into the week there. And we'll kind of talk more about that as we go through the next couple of days. I mentioned the National Hurricane Center here as well. Still sticking with a 20% chance of a tropical system developing. We'll see this potentially go up as we see some models kind of disagree or, hopefully come together in some type of agreement here. We're less than 5 days out. But if you guys remember back with Tropical Storm Chantal, we were watching the same, area of development, and it didn't look like anything was going to happen. And we got a full-blown strong tropical storm moving towards South Carolina, which made landfall in South Carolina last weekend at this time. Right around this, actually Sunday last week at this time. So we'll keep you guys updated on this. We'll do a live stream later and kind of talk about this, kind of go through the discrepancies and what's going to be happening with this event. But like I said, regardless of if this develops into a named storm or not, it's going to bring a lot of rain to Florida. It's going to bring a lot of rain to the southeast and some wind. So be mindful of that if you were in those updated areas areas there in those areas. We'll keep you guys updated on the latest on that. Here's a rough estimate of some timing today. We'll talk about what we're going to be seeing across the board here for severe weather. We could see some pop-up supercells later on this afternoon across Illinois, Indiana, and Kentucky. This is where we're confined at for that tornado risk later on this afternoon. If any outflow boundaries, those bands of wind that come out from these storms could potentially rotate or get an updraft going on one of these storms, we wouldn't be shocked to see a couple of tornado warnings later on this afternoon. The good news is the window for this is basically between now and about 6 to 7 p.m. this afternoon as a couple of these cells move through the Kentucky, Illinois, and Indiana area here. Most of the storms should be out of here by 10 to 11 p.m. Maybe a flash flooding concern if any storms do sit or barely move. About 1 to 3 inches of rainfall for any of those storms there, and then we'll kind of get into more of a quieter period going into next week across the lower Ohio Valley. We'll talk about the Northeast here just briefly. Get you guys out the door. Showers and thunderstorms today, an elevated wind threat. You can see back down here in Pennsylvania, a couple supercells could fire off, maybe a couple clusters of storms. Could see the damaging wind threat up to about 60 to 70 miles per hour. The storms will more than likely initiate between about 2 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time through about 10 to 11 p.m. As the instability goes down, these storms will also decrease with time. And then we'll check the portions of Texas out here and get the rain out of here for you guys. I know you guys are about sick of seeing rain down here in Texas. The good news is most of these showers and storms will be out of here by later on this afternoon. Could see a couple more flare-ups of some thunderstorms with some heavier rain bands through this evening here, but most of that flash flooding threat should start to diminish as we go through tonight and into early tomorrow. Here's an updated rainfall potential here on what we could be seeing as well over the next couple of hours when we go to our 24-hour QPF here, and we'll kind of talk about what this is going to do. Actually, that's not the right one. Let's do total QPF. There we go. About 1 to 3 inches of rainfall for most of South Central Texas here, just north of San Antonio. Maybe some higher spots of 3 to 5 inches of rainfall. A couple areas up here in Arkansas seeing about 1 to 3 inches of rainfall with any heavier storms. Same goes to Missouri and Illinois. So we'll keep you guys updated on that there. I'll briefly run over the forecast and what we're going to be seeing here over the next couple of days. And as we were talking about yesterday, not much has changed. We're going to have kind of a zonal dip in our jet stream here. You can see a little low pressure system here, which is what's bringing that small tornado risk across the lower Ohio Valley later on this afternoon. Going into Monday and Tuesday of next week, zonal flow will continue to be muchly across the United States here with 2 areas to watch. A shortwave trough over the Great Lakes on Wednesday, another one coming in on Wednesday and Thursday across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. We'll be watching down here in the Gulf for what could be potentially our next named storm. We'll see what happens with that, as I mentioned here earlier. Going into Friday and Saturday, we'll continue to see zonal flow, even potentially some damaging wind threats setting up going into Friday and Saturday across the Dakotas through Minnesota, Wisconsin, and the Great Lakes, the Southeast, and the rest of the United States being under a general thunderstorm risk with not a lot of shear, but instability, and those dew points will allow for general thunderstorms each day through much of the week. We start to get into the weekend here, and we'll continue to more than likely see severe weather across much of where our above where our ridge is at. We'll have a high pressure dominating down here in the Four Corners and in the Rockies and Plains, keeping our troughing up to the north. Wherever that troughing sits is typically where we'll see isolated, scattered severe weather. And then going into next week, we're going to continue to kind of look at this and talk more about this. I mentioned this yesterday. This is over 200 hours out currently, so we're watching it. We're going to see what's going to happen. It's not set in stone yet, but high pressure system could set up across the Central Plains for the first time in quite some time. And what this would do is promote what we call northwesterly flow over top of a ridge. And what that can do is help promote damaging wind across the Ohio Valley in the Northeast. So we'll see what happens with this going into next week. It's not quite yet set in stone, but I do think a big ridge does look to be very, very possible going into next week here, which would keep most of the United States once again locked in a general thunderstorms risk, but we'll see abundant sunshine for a lot of those areas as well. So we'll keep you guys updated on that there. I do want to talk about one more thing before we wrap the video up here for today. I know this video is a little bit longer than we typically do, but let's talk about those QPF totals, those rainfall totals through the next couple of days, and where do we see those higher rainfall totals actually at? We've got some higher totals through next Monday here going into the lower Ohio Valley, so the next 7 days here could see about 1 to 3, 3 to 5 inches of rainfall up here in the Ohio Valley, back down in the Tennessee Valley, and then watching the Southeast once again for tropical downpours, 1 to 3 inches of rainfall with 3 to 5 and 5 to 8 inch totals, maybe even some higher totals across western Florida and southern and central Louisiana and even down into the Gulf there. So we'll keep you guys updated on that. I'll have a live stream later on this afternoon. Be safe, guys, if you're out there. Thoughts and prayers again go to everybody impacted by these storms. If anything else crazy changes, I'll have video updates as well as stream updates in the next couple of days here. We'll keep you guys updated. Safe, y'all.